What's going on, world? It's your boy Gemini Brown here, back with another episode of Nalo Kicking Knowledge. Today, we're continuing our North Node, South Node series, also known as Rahu and Ketu, and we'll be discussing North Node or Rahu in the 8th house, Ketu or the South Node in the 2nd house. So, what's the North Node? The North Node is what we're here to ascend to, okay? The characteristics and archetypes we truly need to embody. It's kind of like our destiny, all right? Destined experience, things we're destined to experience. The South Node shows where we've been, okay? Lessons that we've understood and internalized already, and sometimes we kind of cling to. What's the 8th house? The 8th house is the house of secrets. It's the original house of Scorpio, of the occult, of shared resources, of inheritances, sexuality, and so much more. The 2nd house is the house of our values, okay, our survival instinct, our voice. It also shows, our ability to generate wealth, okay? So, let's get into it. Now, this is an interesting one because when it shows the clear reversal of, evolutionary intents. When the North Node was in the 2nd house, it was very much so about establishing independence, especially, in a financial sense or in a familial sense, okay? Now that the North Node is in the 8th house, this is about learning to accept help, right? Sacrificing one's independence for the betterment of their union. All right? So the 7th house is very much so about partnership, right? About how we want our relationships to go and the beginnings and the flow of them. The 8th house shows how we live in these relationships, okay? What happens after we merge. So if we use it in the sense of marriage, this shows the inside of the marriage, what the sex life is like, how they balance their, their bills and generate more wealth and all of that, your desires as a union. But, this is also your own personal desires as well. So, one of the first things you have to know when you have North Node in the 8th house is that, if I can be really blunt, because of what you've done in the past and your approach towards, surviving and wealth, what you deem to be your value system in life, you may need to learn, like I said, to accept help, but just not to be selfish. So people with North Node in the 8th house, they can realize and this is also that inner work, you'll realize certain things about yourself. And maybe one of those things about yourself is that you're selfish. You're here to, adjust to really, being in a union and everything that goes into that. So the pull, what I've noticed here is that the pull to the 2nd house tends to be very, very strong. So it's very important to examine the South Node, right, the ruler, where it's at, and just how that is playing into, your unconscious instincts towards survival and materials. Because the person in this axis, you're naturally possessive. You're coming from an incarnation where you were very much so building your ability to, generate wealth and survive. So if the sign is like maybe like a Taurus, that you're gonna be very fond of luxury. If Venus is in your 2nd house, that adds to it as well, okay? If it's a very so, like a masculine sign, like a Leo, okay, it's gonna show that you probably have some type of talent that you can, take advantage of in this this incarnation, but you believe that your ability to generate wealth solely rests upon you, right? But then in the 8th house, it's going to be the opposite of that. It's going to show you, you know, how and the best way to, you know, merge with another. Okay? So the next thing with this house is that intimacy. This is, you know, this is the original house of Scorpio. Intimacy is something that you're here to learn. So you're going to have intense relationships with people. Depending on what's ruling this house and what other planets are here, you're going to have some really intense feelings in life. Okay? So say Cancer is on this cusp, or the moon, you know, is here with the North Node, is going to add to that that extra intense layer of emotions. Okay? Or is going to add to something that occurred with your mother. But what does all of this do? What is the 8th house? The house of transformation. It sets us up for a humongous transformation. So understand that everybody's road to transforming is going to be very, very different. The best I can do is just outline, you know, different scenarios that may come about. So sexuality, you know, is a huge part of this house. And that goes hand in hand with intimacy. So, and this is also like a very psychological house. It's another water house. And, you know, it's a house of desire. So, what happens here for this individual is that they're forced to confront their psyche in some way. And it can go towards, like I said, being, you know, emotionally connecting with others on that deeper level than the 7th house. Or, you know, sexually, right? So it's going to force the person to confront something about, you know, their psychology of dealing with others and merging with others. But the point is to, you know, emerge, you know, more fulfilled than you were before. Okay? So in the terms of sexuality, what happens here is that depending on the sign, right, the person can be overly have a overly strong desire for sex, or maybe just understand that in the past life they put too much emphasis on sex and now they just need to, you know, balance it out. But it'll bring you into these situations where, you know, sex maybe becomes a problem in your relationships. Okay, the next theme here is about, you know, kind of protecting yourself, right? Learning, you know, the best way to protect yourself in sexual relations and all of that. There's a number of things that can occur in this house, but I don't want you to look at it too, you know, take it too literal. But you learn things about the sexual nature and what it is to really connect with a person. So it isn't uncommon for, you know, people with North Node and 8th house to experience addictions, okay? And that leads you to understanding your own psyche at a better level and regulating certain things, okay? If you know, you fall into something sexually that doesn't work for you, is going to spark a transformation, you know, to improve upon that thing, all right? But like I said, the overall goal here is about greater intimacy with others. And this can come in the sense of learning how to give more, okay? Now, if in terms of like the ruler is really gonna, the ruler of this house is gonna give a lot of emphasis on what you go towards, right? If this is like, if the sun is in, if the house is in Leo, okay, and being ruled by the sun, this makes the person very much so gravitate towards, you know, the occult and maybe have a creative talent for the occult. Also, like within things like Sagittarius as well, you know, there could be a great need to want to learn about the occult. Gemini, these are all different house cusps that can, you know, point you towards, you know, diving in to the occult. In the sense that it could also bring you people who teach you, you know, about the occult or whatever. There's also a place here where you can end up in a secret society, Alright, I've seen so many things play out, man. So, but I'm giving you an idea of the North Node here. Like, you're destined for these secret, intense, experiences. Alright? Then, this is also the house of inheritances, okay? So, what it shows, and this is definitely supported with transits. This is definitely supported with transits and progressions. If you have a planet transiting, like Saturn was just here transiting, for like a Sagittarius. Saturn could have been in your 8th house, right? That could indicate, through the death of some older person, a grandparent or whatever, you inherit, in some type of way. It doesn't always have to be financially, but most likely it will be, all right? It could also, say the ruler of your 4th house is in the 8th house, this can show you inheriting property, okay? Or, being triggered by a progression. It's really, really cool. So if you have North Node in the 8th house and you're watching this video, you're right where you need to be, okay? Because you signed up to experience this secret part of life, the underworld, if you would say, okay? And also in the sense of sexuality, there will be situations where, this could be somebody who, has a same-sex experience when they're younger, right? And they're not necessarily, homosexual or whatever, but they had that experience and now they know, okay, this wasn't the right thing. Obviously, could also indicate, sexual trauma in childhood. So much from this house. But like I said, key thing here, learn to accept help. Don't be selfish, okay? And embrace connecting with, people at a deeper level, whether that be intimately, or teamwork wise. Alright? So guys, this is my interpretation of the North Node in the 8th house. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you need a reading, email me. Till next time, peace.